beep. Morning. How are we? It's fair to say it's not quite as cold as it was, but it's still fairly chilly. Welcome to the court of the Edijester. Please subscribe, put notifications on. I need more subscribers. Doesn't everybody? That's how the way works. So, here, British Psychological Society. I'm going to do something about them tomorrow, I think. Loons. What we've got today, though, is Scotland. We're up in Scotland. We buddy Scotland. We're up there again in Scotland. In terms of gender ideology in schools, as you can see there, there's an article here from ScotPAG.com, who are very well worth watching and following, bookmarking, etc., to understand what's going on in Scotland. In this particular case, gender ideology, are the wheels coming off, and what about our schools? Now, I've noticed a number of, what would you call it? Triumphalism. That's a great word, isn't it? Triumphalism. I've noticed a certain triumphalism post the puberty blocker ban, and I caution against it. Not that we shouldn't celebrate. Of course, we should celebrate good times. Come on. But this ain't over. And pronouncements that it is over, or has gone, or is done, or is the wheels are coming off, as we got here, all right? Be very careful about those particular pronouncements, because I can assure you with absolute certainty, this is nowhere near over. And it's nowhere near over because puberty blocking wasn't the only fight. Gender ideology is not just about puberty blockers, it's about other things as well, which is pointed out by this article from ScotPAG.com. So let's have a look and see what they've got to say. Well, gender ideology, are the wheels coming off, and what about our schools? When the inevitable happens and truth will out, false edifices start to tumble one after the other. West Streeting's recent announcement of the ban on puberty blockers across the UK is very welcome and raises real implications for the future existence of any gender-affirming services for children in any part of the UK. Now, as we know, there is now a concerted effort by the likes of LGBT Alliance, by other organisations, me, Transgender Trend, Our Duty, these organisations. There's a real move by them to ensure that the proposed trial is halted and does not go ahead. I don't think it's any way. I was talking to a couple of doctors yesterday. I don't think there's any way this can pass an ethics committee that isn't captured, and that's the important thing here, an ethics committee that isn't captured. I suspect you could take 12 members of the public, and the members of the public would go, no, you ain't doing this, on the basis that they're going to have to experiment on healthy children and anything to do with gender-affirming care. Gender-affirming care is not a medical thing. It's not medical at all. It's absolute nonsense. None of it is necessary. Absolutely none of it. So there is implications from this that we know that things still need to move forward. So enjoy by all means, but triumphalism, no, it's not over. They continue at ScotPAG, but what about what is going on in our schools? There is little doubt that the embedded nature of gender ideology in schools contributed to the vast increase in the number of children identifying as transgender, especially in Scotland, where we have guidance for schools which supports affirming children's declarations of being transgender and their social transitioning. Well, that's a huge issue. That's a huge issue. So, in other words, despite the fact that puberty blockers are gone, we've still got the establishment itself is supporting the idea of trans and the nonsense that comes with it. You can check out ScotPAG's numerous blogs and articles that highlight the junk science of gender ideology and its embeddedness in our schools and other public services. Scottish education really does have a process of indoctrination going on through the existence of the aforementioned guidance, the RSHP, and the work of LGBTYS, TIE, and other gender-affirming organisations. In this current blog, we draw the reader's attention to, for Women in Scotland's report, what is happening in a child's school. So there's a report back from summer 2024, which if you've not had a look at, please do, especially if you're a parent and a parent in Scotland, although this does apply to a certain degree to elsewhere in the UK. So from a parent's perspective, please do engage with that report on a deep level. So what they've done is here, they picked out for us, thankfully, some of the sort of headline statistics. And this is utterly mind-blowing. So let's take them one at a time. In Scotland schools, 95% of schools support self-ID for all pupils. Despite what we know about this dangerous transgender ideology fantasy nonsense, 95% of schools support self-ID for all pupils. I'm trans. Okay, love. You're beautiful. You're wonderful. There's the dressing up box. Go on, John. You can go and become Julia. Absolutely unbelievable. 89% of schools support the teaching of gender identity. So they're telling kids that gender identity exists when we know it doesn't. Nobody can define it for a start, let alone anything else. 70% are using third sector groups such as the LGBTYS and TI, LGBT Youth Scotland. I mean, they're in trouble for various things, but 75%, 2/3, are using these external morons to indoctrinate children into the lie of gender identity and trans. Only 4% of secondary schools are reliably informing parents as soon as a child discloses feelings of gender distress. So in other words, the schools themselves, 4% of them, are interjecting in a psychosocial event and not involving the parents. Even though they're not psychologists, they're not in any way qualified to deal with the kind of mental instability and the kind of mental derangement that is caused by trans and gender identity. At least 60% of secondary schools are not maintaining single-sex toilets, and 55% are not maintaining single-sex changing rooms. Why? Diversity and inclusion. Equality, diversity and inclusion. Like, the EDI drones. Equality, diversity and inclusion. Good morning all. And what is it today? Diversity, equality and inclusion. They're just all mental, right? EDI and DEI needs to do precisely that. Die. It's absolute rubbish. 86% of secondary schools are requiring or encouraging other children to affirm a gender-distressed child's new identity. So they encourage the kids in these schools, 86%. So when John goes, I'm Julia now, even though we know John's a nutbag, I'm Julia now, and John's unwell, the schools are saying, yeah, you need to call him Julia. Yeah, but he's 15, he's 6'1". Right, he's built like a brick shit. His name's Julia. Have you got it? Call him Julia. He's in my changing room. Yeah, but he's a woman. 86%. We need central government regulation on this. I don't know how else we're going to do it unless we just keep shaming people. In the curriculum, 89% of secondary schools are teaching that people have a gender identity that may be different from their sex. So 89% of secondary schools are telling an anti-science, anti-human lie to children. Right. Where do you want me to go with this? Don't shoot the messenger. 37% are teaching pupils that a person who self-identifies as a man or a woman should be treated as such in all circumstances, even if this does not match their biological sex. So some scroty bloke goes to the gynecologist and says, I need a what do you call it? What do they call that? Smear. Is it a smear? Smear, right? So, right? Or some woman goes to the doctors and says, oh, I'm a bloke, therefore I need a prostate exam. And the doctor's going, where? What? Lunacy. Absolute lunacy. 75% of schools use external providers, and here's your problem, for resources on gender identity. And there's a number of them there that they're referring to. 87% of secondary schools did not say they would inform a child protection lead or medical practitioner when a child, it goes on and on and on. So you can go and read it on ScotPAG, because I put down in the doobries the links that you need as usual. And also the link on this particular blog that's important is the one that takes you to the For Women Scotland report. As parents, you are now you're the last line of defence against this, I'm afraid. You are. And I think it's important that we recognise that. And from your perspective, I know it's hard, but you need to engage with this and find out why the whole gender identity ideology, queer theory, EDI, DIE, whatever the hell they call it, is a danger to your child. I urge you as parents, check the websites, speak to other parents, find out what these people are doing, because they are going to damage your children. And that's the only spin that I can put on that, really, is parent power works. That's the only thing I can say. So please do go and have a look at this from ScotPAG. Great to speak with you as always. Christmas is looming. Oh yes, I hate it. Buy me a coffee, usual stuff. Beg. I'll see you later. Have a great day. Bye-bye.